The creation of the world, a Yoruba myth. This is the story of how the world was created according to the Yoruba of West Africa. The entire world was filled with water when God decided to create the world. God sent his messenger Obatala to perform the task of creating the world. Obatala brought along his helper, a man named Oduduwa, as well as a calabash full of earth and a chicken. Then they began their descent to earth from a rope. Along the way, they stopped over for a feast where Obatala got drunk from drinking too much palm water. Oduduwa, finding his master drunk, picked up the calabash and the chicken and continued on the journey. When Oduduwa reached the earth, he sprinkled earth from the calabash over the water, and he dropped the chicken on the earth. The chicken then ran around, spreading the earth in every direction he moved, until there was land. Oduduwa had now created earth from what used to be water. Later, when Obatala got out of his drunken haze, he discovered that Oduduwa had already performed his task, and he was very upset. God, however, gave him another task to perform, to create the people that would populate the earth. And that was how the world was created in a place now called Ile-Ife. Life in West Africa. African women are the original drummers. Even before the existence of actual drums, African women, just like today, would sing and clap their hands throughout the workday to encourage and entertain themselves while working. Their huge mortars, with long sticks for grinding grain and pestles, pounded out many of Africa's first rhythms. Because the women also wanted to dance, they went to the village blacksmiths and asked that instruments be made to accompany their dancing. Blacksmiths used their fire and tools to make drums and bells, becoming the first drummers' guild. There is a rhythm played for every occasion in African life, to ensure an abundant harvest, to ward off danger, to celebrate rites of passage, birth, death, and marriage ceremonies. African dancers use their bodies to express a message or feeling. The dancer isolates one body part from another. Head, shoulders, arms, chest, hips, and legs all move at once, but in different ways and at different speeds. African dance, like African music, is also polyrhythmic. In Africa, dancers drum and drummers dance. In fact, while dancing and drumming, they playfully copy, complement, and compete with one another. The djembe, as a solo instrument, has the most freedom to mark or accent the dancer's movements, with the musical notes played. At the same time, each of the dancer's body parts accents a different part in the foundation of the rhythm. Back and forth, dancer and drummer communicate with one another. Passage to Brazil. Brazil had the largest slave population in the world, substantially larger than the United States. The Portuguese, who settled Brazil, needed labor to work the largest states and mines in their new Brazilian colony. They turned to slavery, which became central to the colonial economy. It was particularly important in the mining and sugarcane sectors. Slavery was also the mainstay in the Caribbean islands, with economies centered on sugar. Estimates suggest that about 35% of captured Africans involved in the Atlantic slave trade were transported to Brazil. Estimates suggest that more than 3 million Africans reached Brazil, although precise numbers do not exist. Brazil had begun to turn to slavery in the 15th century as explorers began moving along the coast of Africa. With the discovery of the Americas, the Portuguese attempted to enslave the Native American population as well. This did not prove successful. The Native Americans died in large numbers, both because of slave trading, mistreatment, and a lack of resistance to European diseases. The Portuguese found captured Africans to be a valuable trading commodity. As Europeans began to settle the Caribbean islands, they also began transporting Africans to their Brazilian colony. This is an excerpt from the book Poems by a Slave in the Isle of Cuba. 30 years. When I think on the course I have run, from my childhood itself to this day, I tremble and fain would I shun the remembrance its terrors array. I marvel at struggles endured with a destiny frightful as mine. at the strength for such efforts assured, though I am, 'tis in vain to repine. I have known this sad life for 30 years, and to me 30 years it has been, of suffering, of sorrow and tears. Every day of its bondage I've seen, but 'tis nothing the past or the pains. Hitherto I have struggled to bear, when I think, oh my God, on the chains that I know I'm yet destined to wear. Congo Square, the revival of the African beat. It was in the 19th century in Congo Square in New Orleans that observers heard the beat of the bambalaos, the wail of the banzas, and saw the multitude of African dances that had survived through the years. This square, located across Rampart Street on the backside of the French Quarter, was in use as a gathering place for the residents of New Orleans, almost since the city began. It had been in an area outside of the fortified walls of the original city, where Native Americans and later slaves had sold their wares in an open market by the Bayou St. John, the major avenue of transportation of goods into the city. Townsfolk would gather around the square on Sunday afternoons to witness what went on inside the square. In 1819, a visitor to the city, Benjamin Latrobe, wrote about the celebrations in his journal. He was amazed at the sight of 500 or 600 unsupervised slaves that had assembled for dancing. He described them as ornamented with a number of tails of the smaller wild beast, with fringes, ribbons, little bells, and shells and balls, jingling and flirting about the performers' legs and arms. The women, one onlooker reported, wore, each according to her means, the newest fashions in silk, gauze, muslin, and percale dresses. And the males covered themselves in Oriental and Indian dress, and covered themselves only with such a sash of the same sort wrapped around the body. Except for that, they go naked. African Americans are known for their many inventions, creations, and innovations. The creation of the contraption set in 1868 spawned the birth of jazz. Later, the innovations of bebop and hip-hop would change America's music and dance culture forever. The harmony between the dancer and drummer exists here in America too, as illustrated by a jazz drummer and a tap dancer trading eights. Wherever there is a beat, there is rhythm. Wherever there is rhythm, there is dance. If you're inspired to dance or make music, make use of whatever you have around you to express yourself.